Welcome, and we're back for another journey into the heart of truth. So, a topic that has been prevalent throughout my own journey is one of mastery. And really, once you embark on this path, you begin to understand that truly this is a path of mastery that we are all on, mastering ourself, mastering our inner world. And as I record, it is 3/3, March 3rd, the 3/3 portal, according to some, and 33 is the number of the master teacher. So we're going to get into the different layers of what mastery really means, specifically energy mastery, and how to strengthen the body temple and ramp up our psychic defense, what it means to have strong energetic boundaries, and what it means to have true energetic sovereignty. So I feel that these topics are so important for us all to really anchor into and understand, because I do honestly feel that this is a massive gap, a missing piece of the puzzle for so many when they embark upon this journey of healing and awakening. What is the foundational truth of all of these different modalities? What is the aim, really? And to me, it's all about mastery. They don't call them ascended masters for no reason. And, there is a huge difference between expertise and mastery, which I will touch on. I won't do a deep dive into that, but that just came through as something to address in this episode as well. So let's get into it. So for me, the core themes that I have been guided to address are really heal thyself, know thyself, embody your higher self. And in order to do all of these three things, they all really guide us onto this path of mastery. So that is a term, the path of mastery, that I have actually used a fair amount in my own work. And I realized that that's the journey that I was guided to go on myself. So with self-mastery, it really is about realizing that nothing outside of you can have power over you. To get there, though, requires that we go through multiple different layers and phases of our journey. Typically, and the way I see it, there are a few different levels of mastery that we are here to master on this journey. So we have self-mastery, which is the foundation. This is the physical body. So do you have the basics, the essentials, the fundamentals, the foundation in place? So it's like if we were to use the visual of the body temple, which is the visual that came through for me a few years ago, we would be looking at the actual foundation. If you want to look at it as a really strong marble temple, that slab of marble on the ground that is solid and strong, no cracks in the foundation, right? So do you have any symptoms? Do you have, basic mental health in place? Have you addressed the physical symptoms? Have you addressed the detoxification, so on and so forth? And then are you beginning to step onto that path of truly knowing thyself as a being that is more than just this body? And so then you get into the layer of soul mastery, which I kind of see as the next level of the journey, although they do all intertwine, to be really clear, because we are not separated from all the aspects of self. That is the journey that we are on. That is the journey of mastery, is integration, an embodiment of all of these aspects of being in a state of wholeness. So I want to be, cautious when I say different levels and stuff like that, to not really create more of a hierarchy, but it's more of an expansion, right? It's a process of expanding into our more multidimensional aspects of self. So soul mastery is really about mastering the energy body, because there are different layers to our body. We have the mental body, the etheric body, the astral body, the energy body, so on, right? So beginning to understand how the chakras and energy flow together, that there are 33 vertebrae in the spine as well, which I'll touch on again in a moment. But this is really where we begin to access the aspects of energy within and how they impact our experience of life and our reality and our ability to create our reality. This is where we really begin to step into that actual creatorship energy, whether we're conscious of it or not. But the more conscious we become of the actual mechanics of the process and how the actual anatomy and energy body really go beautifully hand in hand, then we can access a whole other level of mastery and truly understand what we're doing in a systematic and methodical manner. So a lot of people are just kind of willy-nilly going out there, getting their galactivations and not really understanding what the bigger picture is, and that the body itself is the vessel for all of this to occur within. So many people skip to step 5 or 6, not having gone through steps 1 through 5 properly. And this is where people have their nervous system meltdowns, or they, maybe open up to some layer of psychic attack. So I'm going to get into the psychic defense, but this is also the empath who doesn't have strong boundaries against narcissists kind of thing. So, do you have that level of energetic sovereignty and boundaries in place? So, this is when we really get to get very clear and honest with ourselves about where we have weaknesses in our energy field, where we need to strengthen our boundaries, and where we need to step into another level of mastery, and, where there are gaps on our own journey. Not from a space of self-judgment, but saying, oh, hey, this could be one of those missing pieces. Let's dive deeper. Let's investigate what this is all about and see if this can really be the thing that shifts things for me. Is this the missing key, if you will? So then we would get into the level of spiritual mastery. Now, these are not necessarily like terms that are widely used. This is how it came through to me: self-mastery, soul mastery, spiritual mastery, as kind of the trinity, if you will. We're working with the 3 energy today. So that's usually how it works, right? So this would be the light body level. So this would be the more advanced spiritual teachings that are out there that many people, they won't come into your field until you're at a certain level of consciousness. Again, don't want to get into hierarchy level, but it's not that we're creating that consciousness, is that we're opening up to this consciousness that is already there, that is always available to us. So once we've released certain layers of the limitation and the lack and gone through a certain level of the self and soul mastery, these more advanced, even technical teachings will begin to come into our field. This is how it has happened for me. I was like, oh, why did I never learn that before? I was like, oh, well, that's because I wasn't ready for it. So even if it had come into my field, I might not have recognized or understood what the post was even about. So I would have just skipped right over it, right? And, I've had other people, kind of question me or tell me that they questioned, how did I get where I was? And then they got to a certain level of their journey, and then they understood what I was talking about a little bit more. So we have to recognize that everybody is on their own journey. Everybody is on their own timing as well. And what we think is obvious at a certain point is still not necessarily so evident to everybody else. So this is where we can also look at the levels of mind control and how to release ourselves from the karmic looping and the mind control, which is really what I feel is this level 2 energy mastery layer. So getting into the mental body and creating strong mental protection and strong energetic protection against all of the infiltration, which really does honestly require a lot of that deeper trauma healing, because the trauma is what creates these openings, these slits or tears in our energy field that allows these energies to infiltrate us. So if somebody is triggering us, it's actually showing to us where we still have an opening, where we're still allowing our external reality, our external circumstances to impact our sense of well-being. Our ability to have control over our reaction is what mastery is. Our ability to have control over how we respond to our circumstances is what mastery is. It doesn't mean that you won't ever confront challenges. It's actually the challenges that and the obstacles that help us step into mastery. Right? So we can thank all of the situations that have created hardship and obstacle and challenge in our life and say, well, that just brought me a whole other level deeper, and I was able to rise up ever higher because of those situations that came in to my life to help me release the karma, to release the struggle, to release the trauma and integrate the trauma. It's not always about release, it's often about the reclamation and integration. So, where is our soul caught up in those entanglements? We can bring our energy back to ourself by cutting the cords, by ending the looping. It's interesting. I will just share a personal layer that I'm working through right now. Is I just finally started recording my audiobook, and as I started recording it, all of a sudden I was experiencing some throat chakra stuff coming up, and I was like, isn't this interesting? I've already got my podcast, I've been doing YouTube for a while, but this is a whole other layer. It's also to read the script and have the you can see every little area, you can hear it so much more intensely when your voice is cracking and where you're slipping up on your words and stuff like that. So it's a whole different beast in my opinion. So it's bringing me through another layer to step into another layer of mastery of my voice, of my throat chakra. So, yes, mastery is truly a tall order because it has to be integrated into all levels of our body, of our being. And it's particularly these lower chakras that govern our physical reality that have to be integrated and worked through. But mastery is really the ultimate key to liberation. So it is well worth the efforts that we go through to confront these aspects of self that need integration, that need some love. That's really what it's about, is forgiveness and love, self-love, and releasing all of the attachments to people, places, things that are not serving our highest good, that are not serving our expansion. So Expansion Path to Mastery was actually the one of the names of my program. I just keep, as I upgrade and expand my own understanding, like the energetic core of the teaching itself is the same, but what is the energetic essence of what it is about? That has kind of shifted a couple times. So that's really like at a baseline level, though, what we're doing is we're expanding our consciousness to open to this field and stepping onto this path of mastery as we go through the journey of awakening, of healing and awakening. They go hand in hand. I feel that many people, that if they awaken first, they wind up going through a healing journey. And if people start with some kind of healing crisis, they often find themselves opening up to this awakening process. So because the body is healed, we're open to these higher energies and frequencies. And so it just begins to come into our field. It might start with law of attraction and manifestation. And then you go deeper and you find yourself really embracing at a very deep soul level layers of mastery and responsibility and becoming a vessel of the divine that is beyond your ego. That is true mastery. So to get back into the body, Again, as I'm recording this, it is 33. So the number 33 has been coming up a lot lately for me in so many different manners. And there are 33 vertebrae in the spine, which I find really fascinating when you look at Yeshua, Jesus, as a master teacher. He is known to be an ascended master and a master teacher himself. He taught us the way. He showed us the way, right? Walking in his footsteps is the path that we are here to move on. And this has nothing to do, just to get really clear, nothing to do with religion, nothing to do with Christianity. I see him as an ascended master, and he happened to have a whole religion created after him. Similar to the Buddha being an ascended master as well, right? So, I just see Yeshua as a very available avatar for us to connect with. And he is obviously quite well known throughout the world. And he is known for his miracles and for the resurrection in particular. So the crucifixion and resurrection are believed to have occurred when he was 33 years old. So there is that symbolic number coming through his own journey of mastery is really what he did. So he came in with a very specific life soul contract. Like he knew what he was meant to do. His mother knew what he was here to do. And so he was trained for his entire life to be this ascended master in human form, essentially. And so he had to go through so many trainings and initiations to be able to go through that process of resurrection, which was really resurrection of the light body. So this is what it represents. If nothing else, symbolically, okay? Take it as you will right now. But then we have three representing the Holy Trinity as well. So the doubling of the three, we have this energy of beautiful divine love. So there's a lot here with this energy, with this 3-3 number as well. So it is also a representation of the Star of David. So if you're not familiar, it's that hexagonal symbol with the two triangles, one pointing up, one pointing down. And it is a symbol that means unity. It is the unity of polarity and oneness with God. So this is often the Star of David is often associated, of course, with Judaism. So if you're familiar with that star, the Jewish star, then that is the symbol that we are talking about. So it's that, again, merging of the two triangles. The downward pointing triangle represents the feminine, while the upward pointing triangle represents the masculine. So the unification of the two symbolizes sacred inner union. But beyond that, it is also a representation of the Merkaba field, which is our light body. So it's a 2D representation of the light body. In 3D form, it would be a tetrahedron. So imagine if those two triangles were spinning, one counterclockwise, the other clockwise. So they're spinning in opposite directions. They create this light body vehicle. So the Star of David itself is, you can look at it as like a light symbol code. It's a coding that activates our technology, our inner technology. And all of this symbolism of 33 and the Star of David points us to deeper truths about the process of initiation, but about the energy body itself. So, and also like the role of energy in the body. So we have the spine with the 33 vertebra as the central column around which all of the energy centers operate. So all of the chakras are in alignment, all of the 7 primary chakras anyway, are in alignment with the spine. So when we look at the energy body from this perspective as connected to the vertebrae, then all of a sudden this process of spirituality and ascension becomes very grounded in the physical. It's a biological process, it's a biochemical process, even. And so, once you can understand that the energy world and the physical world are not separate, that they go hand in hand, you suddenly understand why healing the body is the foundation for spiritual awakening and ascension as well. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be 100% perfectly physically healed to be able to access the higher realms and to have beautiful experiences in meditation. However, the more in coherence our body is, the more our body is in a state of harmony and homeostasis. This is the goal, right? This is how we then are able to anchor in the higher light codes, the higher light frequencies into our body. We have to create the space by releasing the density and releasing anything that causes disharmony in the body. And that can be at the most practical level of a physical detox, a physical cleanse of parasites, heavy metals, anything else that is not actually organic, right? So it's releasing anything inorganic from the body so that the body can return to its most natural organic state, its pure state of being. The biology itself is quite miraculous when left to its own devices. When you can allow the body to heal, it self heals. It naturally heals itself, right? But if the body is in a state of stress, of survival, of struggle, it automatically, the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems are directly implicated in the body's capacity to heal. If we're in a state of fight or flight, which is akin to survival mode, the body is then in a stress state and it cannot heal. It pulls energy away from digestion, and the gut-brain connection is a very, very prominent one. The gut is the source of a lot of physical conditions in the body as well, even serotonin, that link between the brain. But there are many conditions that originate in the gut, and then we have the role of parasites and imbalances of bacteria and things like this that can cause a whole host of issues. So if we have parasites in the body, they're literally leeching off our energy. They're leeching off our food source. We're not absorbing the nutrients properly. And actually, minerals are really important for ascension because they help us to assimilate the higher frequency light codes coming in off the sun. So it all really goes hand in hand. And then we get into the gut brain connection. So this opens us up now into the idea of mind control and that psychic defense and protection. So if we have any distortions in our energy field, any unhealed emotional pain, wounds, if we have unhealed trauma, this creates distortions in our energy field, even slits or tears in our energy field, if you will. So think about the aura. When we have a strong energy field, our aura is strong and impenetrable. When we know how to cleanse, clear, and protect our energy field, nothing can get to us. So people can, try to trigger us. We can have narcissists trying to gaslight or manipulate us. But if we have a strong energy field, and if we really know ourselves so deeply, know our hearts so deeply, and our connection to divinity, none of that can get to us. We'll be able to see right through the BS. We'll be able to see right through the manipulation tactics. But if we don't have that strong sense of self, if we have a weaker energy field, because of physical trauma, emotional trauma, psychological trauma, all of the above, perhaps. If we're dealing with that still, if we're holding on to that, it creates distortions in the energy fields, which creates an opening. So I did get into this in the previous episode of The Courage to Confront Evil. And that sounds quite heavy, right? But it's actually, how does evil begin? It begins within those little moments of giving our power away to the anger, to the resentment, to the jealousy, for example. So even gossip can constitute a low-level form of black magic. And it can send negative energy toward the person that people are gossiping about. So if if people are talking behind your back and you don't know about it, maybe you have a sense that people are not, they're two-faced, right? Maybe you can kind of sense that, but you don't know. If you don't have strong energy protection in place, you might be directly impacted by all that negative gossip in the energy field. So you've got to really have a strong foundation of energetic clearing and protection practices in place, especially when you step into your power and embody your light. There's a very good chance you're going to trigger people. And they might not be doing it maliciously or even consciously. I mean, obviously, people who gossip don't, most of them aren't thinking like, oh, let's send black magic. They're not thinking like that. They're just gossiping out of jealousy, envy, resentment, whatever it is. They're projecting their own inner wounding onto you. But if you still have some weaknesses, if you're still operating in people pleaser mentality or, are used to being the scapegoat or whatever, that can affect you. Whether you are conscious of what's going on behind your back or not, it can still affect you. So if you're caught in these loops of feeling stuck or struggling, in a karmic loop, for example, it's time to get really serious about honing your energetic boundaries and creating stronger protection and knowing what you're actually up against. And then you can get into the level where you're actually deliberately targeted by some darker energies. So, yes, we can talk about narcissistic abuse and how many times, more often than not, those people who have that energy are actually vessels for darker entities and energies, and they kind of get hijacked themselves. They are under the mind control themselves. But this can then evolve into direct spiritual attack as well. Spiritual warfare is kind of the general field that we're talking about now. But, even just people getting angry in the comment sections on social media, if they don't agree with you or just don't understand, often we're talking on two different levels of consciousness, and they can drag you down into that back and forth of the 3D if you're not cautious. And you've got to get really clear with yourself of what your boundaries are, because I don't like blocking people and cutting them off, because I hope that eventually they will, a seed will be planted, for example, and eventually they will be activated to the point of starting to understand it and saying, oh, Amanda wasn't crazy. Or, oh, I get what she's saying now. Heck, they might even turn around and apologize one day. Maybe not. I'm not holding my breath for most of those, But at the end of the day, we also get to choose who has access to our energy field. And sometimes the most loving thing we can do is to cut that cord, is to cut people off. If they don't honor your requests and respect your boundaries, if they go for the jugular and they start to character assassinate and attack the content of your character by saying you are this versus saying your argument is not something that I agree with, that's different. Those are two totally different things. And if you repeatedly request somebody to stop with the character assassinations, the character attacks, and then they continue, well, you're not falling into, the whole point is to hold your vibration and frequency. You're not necessarily falling into the trap of separation by cutting them off, because even though it seems like separation consciousness to cut somebody off like that, it's also not serving anybody to be in those back and forth loops, right? So sometimes for your highest good, for your highest service to those who are ready to listen to your message, sometimes that is the most loving thing to do for the highest good of all, is to cut certain people out, unfortunately. And they might block you. And that's on them, right? So it is what it is, right? But we've got to also understand that parasitic energies and energy vampires, conscious or not, both both exist, are also very real. So in the spiritual community, unfortunately, there are predators. There are false light gurus out there that say all the right things, but they're actually taken over by an AI inorganic consciousness they've likely attached to in the astral, possibly through plant medicine. That's a very, very common one. But sometimes just opening up and doing astral traveling again without having the protection in place, without knowing what you're doing. So this is what I mean about diving into the deep end without knowing what you're doing, which a lot of people have done. And this is why things are so chaotic right now. They don't have the energetic protection in place. They haven't done the lower chakra work. They haven't sealed their energy field. And you don't have to be, going through the journey. Sometimes we have to go through these experiences of psychic attack to then reclaim our energy from that karmic situation and then end that contract. So again, it's not about blame. We're also learning these levels of discernment and energetic boundaries. Discernment is a huge one. I wish I had used that word earlier in the episode, but here we are. I'll add it in the description. A huge piece of this is the capacity to discern who is actually operating in integrity and who is sharing higher truth, and then who is operating in distortion in service to ego, in service to self. So we always want to call in the guides and the protection from those in service to the true law of one for missions of harmony and love and light that are truly anchored in true light, not false light. So I have talked about how trauma creates these openings a fair amount, but this is where the layer of psychic protection becomes really important, is if we're still on that journey of integration and reclaiming our soul aspects, our soul fragments, this is where they can get in. This is where they can insert themselves and manipulate you and gaslight you, pose as, it's the masking, right? Some of them wear really good masks, and sometimes because of a karmic contract, you might be the last to see it. And there could be a lot of self-blame and shame involved with that. Like, how did I not see this? How did I let it get to this point? Kind of thing. Like, just diminishing the red flags and ignoring them, just saying, oh, they're having a bad day, kind of thing, which I was very guilty of doing when it came to the most challenging circumstance that I have faced in my lifetime as of yet. And hopefully it's the most I will ever face because that was not fun. But I dealt with a former healer and quote unquote healer, not true healer, not true friend, who posed as something that they were not. And they got total access to my energy field and my records and really attempted to destroy my life. And I don't say that lightly. So yeah, that may be another episode for another time. I have been talking about it publicly, sharing the story, and it's all in divine timing. Some things are meant to be shared, some things are not meant to be, and then some things are only meant to be shared at a certain point in time. And I feel like there is a reason that I haven't shared it yet publicly, and I probably won't name names specifically. But at the end of the day, my point is I have dealt with so many layers of this and I have gone through the ringer. And so I have had to learn my lessons in the hard way, but I also know that it's because I am here to be a teacher. And so to be a teacher, you have to know, you have to have walked the walk, what it is that people need to be able to hold space in a manner with high integrity. So this is another issue that I have seen is people are holding space for healing containers, going deep into layers of trauma and stuff without knowing how to properly hold space. And that can even be in one-on-one sessions. If you don't know how to protect the energy field of yourself and your client, well, you don't know what you might be a channel or a vessel for. You may be doing, unfortunately, this is the fact, you may be doing more harm than good. People like this individual that I just mentioned, were they conscious of it or not was kind of unclear because multiple healers that I worked with tapped in. And so sometimes they're not even conscious of it because they unconsciously became a vessel for this energy. They don't know that this is what they're doing half the time. And so then they step into the blame. Sometimes they know full well though. So, take this all with a grain of salt and use your own intuition and discernment when it comes to any individuals you might have a question about in your field. And at the same time, one of the huge lessons there is to release the judgment and the blame and the bitterness and resentment because often they don't know, and often that can become your biggest lesson and your biggest teacher. So we have to look at this from the higher perspective of we're all returning to love and sending compassion because only somebody who's operating in their own distortions and insecurities will wind up becoming a vessel for that kind of energy, allowing the bitterness, the resentment that they experienced to be, operating their life so that they're projecting it onto everybody else, not taking responsibility for themselves. So we get to hold compassion for it while also saying, I'm definitely cutting that tie. I'm definitely cutting that cord. So as we go through this journey of mastery, get to have a high capacity to spot the bullshit, to pick up on the manipulation tactics and the deception and the gaslighting. We are on this journey to be able to hold our boundaries firm and strong so that the light truly wins. Because if we have these openings in our field, this is how that darkness seeps in. And I just looked at the clock for the first time, it's 2:22 right now. So it's that Holy Trinity inner union, self-love, energy. 6 is a number of embodied love. So it's actually really quite a beautiful synchronicity there. So, again, just to bring this back full circle, I started talking about triggers. So if you have triggers coming up in your field or, with certain individuals, that is a sign that some part of you is allowing that person to still have some control over you, however subtle that may be. Even if that's just you care about the relationship, so you care about their opinion of you. It's not necessarily coming from a bad place or anything like that you should judge yourself for. But if it's gotten to the point where their judgment is causing you to get triggered or to play small, if they're, not approving of what you're doing, of what you're saying, then you have to get really clear and honest with yourself about how that relationship is serving you in this moment. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to cut ties completely, but how much of your energy do they get to have access to? So, mastery is a path of radical self-responsibility when it comes down to it, but it is so incredibly liberating. This truly is, again, the key to our liberation. So, I have created the Body Temple Blueprint to help address these aspects. So it came through as a download because I realized that there is a very foundational blueprint that we can work with in order to awaken the multidimensional aspects of self and do the healing. So they go hand in hand, right? So this is about healing and awakening and stepping into true mastery. So the level 1 is the foundation, and level 2, I'm going to be hosting live as of March 20th. We begin. So this will be about energy mastery. So this is the Body Temple Blueprint level 2 mastery. And we're going to get into energetic sovereignty and how to create this very strong pillar, this very strong foundation of protection, how to clear our energy field, defense against the dark arts, if you will, and then also accessing these beautiful multidimensional aspects of self from this place of true sovereignty, from this place of being truly grounded. We're going to get into the inner tree of life and the spine and the true tree of life, I would like to say, because there is a false tree of life that a lot of people are working with that is creating a frequency fence. So these are all different aspects of the teachings that we also get to have a really strong level of discernment with, because a lot of the teachings themselves out there are unfortunately rooted in distortion. So, the Body Temple Blueprint Level 1, the foundation, is about the physical temple. So, I include a lot of tools and modules about healing the physical vessel as well as mindset and stepping into that path of knowing thyself. So, really working with the baseline activations and connecting with your higher self and stuff like that. But then, how do we actually embody it? This is where the level 2 really begins to come into play, really mastering the energy body and the energy centers and understanding the technicalities of it, not just, oh, the chakras, but like what is required for us to actually clear the energy centers, to heal, to anchor in to these multidimensional aspects of self. And then as you move forward, those light body aspects and components then begin to come on stronger and stronger. So in level 2, we'll address things like intuition, psychic gifts, and oh, I just blanked out. What was that other what was that other thing? Oh, and some introduction to grid work. We're not going to get deep into that because that is a whole mission and task unto itself to learn how to do that properly. But what it is and why it's important, as not an entire module, but something that I will address. So you have a true understanding of what it is, because people throw out these terms and, people are just kind of floating around in la la land and not really actually knowing what they're doing and not having the level of mastery or responsibility required to do so with integrity, not from a sense of blame or shame, but from a sense of we lost the teachings and now we're all just fumbling. Like it's like the wild, wild west out there, right? So what I am endeavoring to do is to create a blueprint. Everything in my school is designed to help people really get that foundation right, to heal thyself, know thyself, and embody your higher self. So everything is really centered around that. So if you're interested in joining us for this container of mastery, of true mastery, I will have the link below. It is linked in my school, Illumina Wisdom School. You can find it linked on amandaerinkelly.com or my other website, thisartcalledlife.com, which I might be transitioning soon. So whenever you hear this, just double check the links below, and it's always available on amandaerinkelly.com. So you'll be able to find it. And yeah, I guess that is all I have to share with you today, because this is a huge topic. We're really just scratching the surface, and I hope you received some value from it. I hope it connected some dots and filled in some puzzle pieces or missing gaps, or, just elucidated something for you or confirmed something for you. So, as we collectively move through these journeys of awakening, there's just so much chaos right now in the messaging coming out from the media, and people are attached to different narratives and then projecting onto each other. It's creating this separation consciousness, this divide and conquer, even within spiritual communities. And there is so much happening behind the scenes on multi-dimensional levels that a lot of people are just completely unaware of, even those who are quote unquote awakened and spiritual. A lot of people still really don't have the full picture of what's happening. And when you actually step into this realm of mastery, you actually have the capacity to really discern with little question or doubt what's truly happening and who's truly operating in service to the higher good of humanity and who is not. So, I'm not going to get political in this episode whatsoever. That is absolutely not what it's about. And, the left versus right itself is a psyop, right? So, but it's just to reiterate the fact, if we're talking about 3-3, the flip side, the inversion of 3-3 is the Masons, right? So we have the duality very, very present with us in our collective consciousness right now. And this is what I feel is one of the keys to ending this friction and ending the karmic looping with people who you disagree with and all of that energy on social media that is not pleasant, right? So how do we transcend this? How do we end the trance? It's by embracing this path of mastery and really getting our energetic boundaries in particular very clear, very strong, and very firm. So with that, I will wrap it up for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I am sending you so much love, onward and upward in love and light as we journey home to the heart of truth. And I hope to see you soon. Thank you for tuning in to the Heart of Truth podcast with your host, Amanda Erin Kelly. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a rating or review on your favorite platform. And if you'd like to go deeper, grab your copy of my book, Let There Be Light, and join us inside the free community in Illumina Wisdom School, where you can access free resources to jumpstart your journey, such as a higher self activation and the Body Temple Blueprint Masterclass, as well as explore the plethora of resources, including Awakening Fundamentals and Luminary, my signature path to wholeness and mastery, to help you become your own healer and sovereign authority. You can access everything at thisartcalledlife.com or find the links down in the show notes below. Until next time, onward and upward in love and light as we journey home to the heart of truth.